Good. I'm having issues.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, sorry, I was getting an echo for a second there. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I am. So, sure, let's go.
Okay. How do we want to proceed? Do I just begin with this concept, or how do we want to go forward?
Oh, no.
So we're going to get to you.
You have another meeting agenda
Couple
item.
formalities, and we've got our city manager is going to do a report, but you'll be right after that.
Very good.
Roger, you're muted. There.
Getting right. Sure. Or
Can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was getting very bad audio from you guys, and I wasn't sure if it was me or something going on with Zoom. So I guess I am finally ready with that. So.
Right.
Who's practicing music?
Me. Sixth grader.
sounds like flute. Nice.
Roger, did you want me to do the roll call or?
Yeah, sorry, that's how we usually do it. So, and I was just trying to bring up the agenda as well. So
Okay.
let's call a meeting to order. Do you guys have Zoom running out to the whole world? Are we streaming this?
We are, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, let's call the meeting to order, and Greg, go ahead, take a roll call.
Will do. Commissioner Walters?
Here.
Commissioner Light?
Present.
Commissioner Krazan?
Present.
Commissioner Callahan?
Present.
Commissioner Kilroy?
Here.
Co-chair or Vice Chair Bauer?
Here.
And Chair Carlson.
Present. Okay. And let's go on to the salute to the flag. Jim, I won't make you do it because I make you do it every month. Co-chair Bauer, could I ask you to lead us in the salute to the flag?
Absolutely. So I see the flag is up. Put your hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
That was a good one. Thank you. You're good at managing the timing. Okay. Next item is approve order of the agenda. The only possible comment I would make, and I'm open to other comments, is whether we do what order we do the two L items in. We've got input on the budget, and then we also have a guest presenting on a possible future educational facility at the waterfront. So we could potentially rearrange those two items so that the guest doesn't have to sit through the budget item. And of course, that makes Mike have to sit through the educational facility item, but sir, you may be interested in that. So I'm open to comments on the agenda order and anything else we might want to do.
I will say we put the city manager first just because we think his is going to be fairly quick.
Okay.
But absolutely, it's under your purview if you want to switch it.
Wasn't sure how long this would be, so I'll leave it open. Anybody, if we have a motion or a second or a vote.
I'm in favor of it remaining the way it is.
Sounds fine to me.
I actually have my hand up. I was going to make the opposite motion because it seems when we get into the budget, that could be a long drawn out discussion. There's nothing we saw in the file, but I don't know if there's a subcommittee we create to start working it or what. And I'd rather not drag Tom all through that.
Yeah, thanks.
not-
I actually have another later dinner engagement, so if there's a way we could
Okay,
transpose those, I'd really be very grateful to the commissioners.
I'd like to make the motion to swap L2 and L1.
second,
Second.
Okay, just do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I think we're fine with the rearrangement then. Any other items on rearranging the budget? Okay, hearing none, we are up to blue folder items and additional backup materials. We did get a blue folder item that supports discussion L2. I don't think was there anything else we need to do at that point. We're up to consent calendar, approval of posting, and approval of the minutes. Anyone got anything to pull on the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks. We are up to excluded consent calendar items, don't have any. And then we are up to public participation on non-agenda items, which gives the public 3 minutes to talk on an item that's not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public looking to speak at this point?
No one on Zoom for non-agenda items.
Okay, great. Then we are up to, and no comment, no e-comments or emails?
No e-comments, no.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that.
No worries.
We are up to ex parte communication.
There's no hearings.
We're not up to, sorry, we're not, ex parte communication hearings up after that.
You don't need that if we're not having a hearing.
Okay. I apologize. I misunderstood how that section worked. Okay. We're up to items approved from previous agendas. Nothing there. And then items for discussion prior to action. So we are, we're already up to the meat of the meeting. Greg, this is how we do it here. This is how fast we move.
We just dive right into it, huh?
Yeah, this isn't, like those city council meetings that go till 2 and 3 a.m. Okay, so we are up to the topic of potential programming for a future educational facility. And do we have any introduction on that, or do we just go right to it?
Sure. Yeah, I think this is really hopefully the beginning of a series where we listen in on what potentially could be happening as a part of the vision of the waterfront, which includes an educational facility. And we've got Thomas Grimm, who is an expert in a lot of things water related. He's got great ideas. He's got a lot of stuff ironed out, and he's going to be making a formal presentation to you on what his ideas are and what the potential for that educational facility could be. So without further ado, Mr. Thomas Grimm.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just start then first with a introduction to who I am. I don't know if can you see this, everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is Carlsbad Aqua Farm, which I'm the owner and operator, president of it. Basically, it's in a lagoon in Carlsbad that's been operating for 50 years, growing oysters and mussels and various other seafood products. There's me on the right, and below that, my wife, who just returned from Hawaii, where she was teaching class in coastal zone management and aquaculture restoration projects in Hawaii with her students from Johns Hopkins, who are all working on their master's degree. This is what the farm looks like in its operational scope. It's basically a harvesting system where they harvest oysters and mussels. You can see both on the line here as they're brought to shore every day. We harvest about 2 tons of oysters and 2 tons of mussels every week that are brought to the market, mainly in the seafood restaurants and some of the local seafood markets like Whole Foods and groups like that. So that's basically our product line. This is how they harvest it. The mussel lines on the left are lines holding mussels that are attached to these grow lines. And on the right are oyster trays, and below the water are submerged for about 8 months to a year to bring their product to maturity. We work with a lot of local interns from Miracosta Community College, where my wife also teaches, and brings some of the more promising students to learn how to be an ocean farmer. As I said, we've been around for about 50 years, and it's a family-owned farm. So that's basically, in a nutshell, a little bit about my background. I'm going to go now to these concepts that I've been working on with Mike Wazansky and his team. So this idea we're calling Ocean Encounter, and that's the premise for what we're going to review today. The site that we're looking at is Joe's Crab Shack. You may mostly be familiar with that, next to the Seaside Lagoon. And these are some perspective views of that facility. I don't know much about Joe's Crab Shack other than there's hundreds of them around the country, so it's not a distinctive architectural or restaurant, something that is a very special consideration from the standpoint of a real identifiable trademark venue for Redondo Beach. So Ocean Encounter, as we envision it, would be a nonprofit organization to engage and deepen people's connection with the coastal environment and promote seafood and sustain brain and heart health from the day you're conceived to throughout your lifetime, and also issues of seafood security and sustainability. So the designs that I have, I'm going to discuss, are based on replacing the footprint of Joe's Crab Shack with these modular systems that are going to be focused on immersive experiences through what people call augmented reality, as well as exhibits on restoration aquaculture and aquaponics, and a studio kitchen, all focused on things that we can grow in the ocean for seafood. These main components include a restoration exhibit. Augmented reality is a series of experiences we're going to talk about. Studio kitchen is a place where young people all the way to retirees can learn about preparing seafood and incorporating into the regular part of their diet. Aquaponics is a combination of aquaculture and hydroponics that are grown together in a very symbiotic manner. And then other facilities there would allow for conferences, teacher workshops, public forums, as well as some expression for ocean culture from the Pacific Rim and the peoples that are associated with the ocean culture in the Pacific. So this facility, as I described, is in a series of modules. They're based on a design system called Blue Homes that was originally developed at MIT and has already been pre-permitted for a lot of coastal areas in California. So this is not a big, massive facility. It is a series of module structures that can be easily moved around like pieces on a chessboard till they fit into the particular use patterns that I'm proposing. The overall site plan for these modules includes what I'm calling this augmented reality ocean encounter simulation zone. There's obviously restroom facilities and office. There's a hospitality area with an oyster bar and a studio kitchen off to the left. The other area of the building is a aquaponics garden that you can see illustrated to the right, that has these circular tanks that have green covers on them. And that is where we would plan on growing a species like rainbow trout that would, when exposed to seawater, become steelhead salmon. And those grow beds in the foreground are varieties of plants that would be fed by the nutrients provided to fish. So the nutrients, the waste streams from fish, provide an enormously rich range of nutrients that cause for exceptional performance for a variety of fruits and vegetables. There's also settling tanks and even some degassing systems that can power a small fuel cell. So the system itself can be self-powered within the ecosystem of how that equipment is arranged here. And then below that, you can see a couple of chefs who will be taking some of those fish out from time to time to use for the studio kitchen purposes as they go through their studio kitchen activities. So this is how it would work. This is not, this earlier design is not exactly the formation of it, but I wanted to show you the features of what we're talking about in a cluster basis. On the upper left, you see what we're calling a studio kitchen space, where you have tables on wheels that can be conformed or configured based on different audiences and user groups with a video screens in the background, and links to a broadcast platform where the public can also log in. If they can't get into a particular class, they can still participate and connect with some of the guest seafood chefs that would be coming and presenting their special programs and menus for training and experiencing the harvest of the ocean. Below that is an aquaponics garden, which is essentially growing these different types of both fish and plants that are being incorporated into the studio kitchen. But people can learn how to grow things through these symbiotic systems. And then in the upper of a center area, you see the ocean encounter, which is kind of a combination of a physical exhibit where there's actual models of kelp and coral and different ecosystems. But in that, when people put on their headsets, they can actually see marine life that would be appearing in these diverse ecosystems. So it's another angle of this shot here. And we're still working on the configuration of what this space would be. But again, you see the studio kitchen would also have an outside area, which would be where the word studio kitchen is actually where the ocean is located. And so that would have some viewing area for the public or those who go to studio kitchen to enjoy some of the samples from each of the studio kitchen activities. And again, you can see here this augmented reality space, which we're going to go to in a little more detail. So this is actually what it would look like in some sense when you are walking there. Even if you're not wearing a headset, you can see these kelp plants and other structures on the bottom, and then marine life popping in and out of that forest of kelp. This is something we're also going to talk about for restoration purposes in Redondo Beach. So part of this will be connected to actual activities and programmatic work that we do in Redondo Beach in reforesting these natural kelp forests. So this is an example of what will be on the video wall behind that. So these are courtesy of Netflix, Our Planet. And here you see what would be panoramic images of kelp forests or coral reefs or whatever it might be that are behind the physical structure. So this would be on big screens. So even if you didn't have a headset, you'd still see this on giant screens. But with augmented reality, the size of things can be very massive, and you could be the size of a diatom or go into the deep ocean to see a deep sea angler or pods of dolphins or whatever might be of interest to the augmented reality audiences that we would be programming for. I was just thinking what Jim Light showed me about this breaching humpback before we started to speak, but this is an area off the Redondo Beach where we have immense marine life migratory patterns, and we want to make that available. Not penguins, but it's a variety of things. But going back to what we're talking about is to have these kelp forests and headsets intermesh to create experiences that absolutely are astonishing. And no one's ever done this type of thing. There are augmented reality programs and video games, which we're going to talk about, but integrating them all together is something new. And that's what we want to do at Redondo Beach in this concept we're calling Ocean Encounter. So it's a fully immersive, experiential, augmented reality. And by experiential, I mean these virtual seals or sharks or clownfish or eels, whatever they might be, will react to people's movement. So they are moving in and amid some of these models to create a sense that you really are walking on the floor of the ocean at some depth where kelp forests would be occurring. So I'm going to show you an example of augmented reality. You're walking through the forest, and now these have additional sets of information that come streaming in. And of course, in this case, you have other kinds of data that you can connect with. As you discover these things, you can say, okay, what is this species? Can we identify that particular individual? The kind of work that my father-in-law, who ran the Aquarium of the Pacific for 15 years, and his daughter, oceanography professor as well, spent a lot of time looking at this, all the way down to these deep sea blue, black smokers, et cetera. So this allows the public to have experiences that nobody actually ever has. You can immerse yourself and get all this data streaming all at the same time. Now, what we want to talk about in these ocean encounters isn't just something dazzling and riveting and highly entertaining, but things that people are interested in doing, which is to understand how the ocean works, how its ecosystems function in terms of providing habitat for marine life, but also the need to protect and restore these naturally occurring ecosystems like a kelp forest. So kelp forests are native to Redondo Beach. A lot of them have been lost because of a collapse of sea stars, and as a result of that, sea urchins have created these, they call sea urchin barrens, and we've lost a lot of this, 90% of the kelp forests along the coast of California. And what we're interested in doing is some restoration aquaculture, which is not growing food. It's reestablishing these forests of kelp, cold water corals, eelgrass meadows, all those kinds of things, which are native to the coastal areas around Redondo Beach. Another area, now these are more tropical corals, but there are coral reefs that are in the offshore oil platforms off the coast of Redondo Beach, and they're quite astonishing. So the idea, again, is that visitors could come and interact with things. Now, of course, because it's augmented reality, you could say, well, I want to see what it's like in the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia, or the Barrier Reef off the coast of Belize, or wherever you want to explore off the coast of Cuba. There's been dazzling reefs throughout the world, and a lot of them are in trouble. And again, the idea here is to understand what's going on, and critical role they play as a nursery for almost half of marine life. Diversity is based on the productivity and the diversity that these nurseries support. And we want to make sure that they're around for many generations into the future. And so this is to explain to people we're at an inflection point in terms of the future of this ecosystem. And again, how extraordinary it is, and a heritage that we want to pass on through the generations. And the place you can learn about those things would be Ocean Encounter Redondo Beach. That's the idea behind this. Another key technology we're involved with, I'm a partner with this amazing lady named Belinda Zhang. She was head of research and development for Foxconn in China, in Qingdao. Foxconn is the company that produces iPhones and a lot of other high technology, but she was the head of it. She said, well, I'm going to create a drone company called QC5Fish, which we are represented for the United States on, and a dealer. So we do training in these underwater worlds with these drones, which would also be a virtual thing. So this is a clip of these drones. And this is something that we would want to do virtually, so people could have it as a simulator. And they could learn how to operate these things. And their little headsets and things you could do with this. The idea here is that you'd go to Redondo Beach to learn how to operate drones. You can start by maybe in the off season using the drones in the Seaside Lagoon, perhaps, or virtually in our Ocean Encounters site. So all this technology is ready at hand for us. And I don't want to go too much into that other than to say that we have about 10 different levels of drones, from really recreational diver and sports people, all the way up to people that are using those drones for inspecting critical infrastructure for infrastructure protection and restoration that is now funded by the federal government. This is another type of restoration project we would have in these ocean encounters. It's called eelgrass meadows. And this is another critical habitat. And again, a natural plant that grows in clear waters. If the water's too murky, these plants don't survive. And so Redondo Beach, again, around the outside area, not within the marina itself, but outside the marina, we want to be involved with restoring eelgrass meadows, which we've done in other locations. Same thing with coral reef restoration work. So the idea when we talk about aquaculture, we're talking about restoration and not just farming like I do in Carlsbad. And so we're active in coral reef restoration work. And as I mentioned, as are other members of my family, which we'll talk about in a moment. Habitat restoration also includes the wetlands surrounding that area, like as you can see here, which are spectacular and important parts of the ecological health of coastal California. The ocean encounter technology, I'm not going to go into it too deep from a technical standpoint because I don't know many of you here are involved with virtual reality or augmented reality or video game structure, but we are. And we work with people who have been involved with that for 30, 40 years, including the USC Game Pipe Lab that it pioneered a lot of the current technology for the latest video game technology. So in addition to augmented reality, Ocean Encounter that I've talked about uses interactive visualization. So we have video walls around the augmented reality area. So even if you don't have a headset, you will be blown away with those videos that I showed you with streaming media that we would use with our partners from Discovery Channel and Netflix and National Geographic and places like the Aquarium of the Pacific and others that have a lot of content, which would be edited and fitted into these high resolution video walls. This is the Hyperwall backend layout portal, global system management architecture, which I'm not going to spend any time explaining right now. But if you really want a technical treatise on that, I'm glad to put you through the House of Pain and you can learn how it all works. The other part we want to talk about is the studio kitchen. We talked about augmented reality in the upper right-hand corner and then the aquaponics and aquaculture in the lower right-hand corner. But on the left, it's the studio kitchen. And this is not just for people who go to get their workshops at Sur La Table or Williams-Sonoma. These are for apprentice chefs that might be 8 years old or even 6. I just had my 2 grandkids and we were doing a little of this kind of stuff. And it's just incredible the kinds of things that kids can do. Anybody's ever watched Master Chef Junior, see what these young kids can do. It's crazy, way beyond my skill set. So the idea here is that young people, whether they be with a school group or with their parents, could get classes in how to prepare excellent seafoods and make it potentially part of their diet. In the lower right-hand corner, you see an example of the layout of this studio kitchen. As I said, the tables are on wheels and there's broadcast systems there so that whatever we do, if you can't get in, and it'll be long lines to get into these studio kitchen programs, you can still log on and we can do subscription things. These kinds of things, including the augmented reality, create revenue streams. So I'm not a big believer in running around and chasing money down forever to raise money. There are people interested in supporting this, but this has got to be something that stands on its own 2 feet with revenue streams that this is structured around that idea. The idea of having exhibits on native species, such as rock scallops, which we grow. We would want to grow some inside our controlled aquaculture exhibit area. This isn't growing out in the marina, obviously, but these are things that would be made into culinary presentations in the studio kitchen by master chefs, whether they be 6 or 60. But the idea, whatever age they are, you learn how to create a work product and learn how that delicious food is also really, really great for your brain development, your ongoing brain health, and your heart health. So this is, both of my children, as Mike knows, are physicians, and one is a pediatric gastroenterologist and also a molecular genetic scientist, very keenly interested in heart health and brain health and proper diets. And my daughter's is a emergency medicine and expedition doctor, so also diver and climber and all that. So there's a lot of interest in the part of my family on my side, which are scientists and physicians, and on my wife's side are oceanography professors and teachers. So we've got a really great mix of talent to put together something very special. Whether, again, we want to make sure that this is not just about a heavy lift and learning a lot of important principles. It's about also having fun. Going to the augmented reality experience can be a wild, fun ride and experience and provocative. but you also can learn things. Or when you're cooking, especially little kids, they also have a lot of fun doing this and developing some self-esteem and confidence that they can make quality things. The aquaponics garden that is part of the space looks sort of like this, where you have raised grow beds. What's nice about this is, opposed to gardening on your knees, where you're hunched over and picking up strawberries and whatever it is on your crawling around, you're at waist height where the food is. And the reason why it's at that height is because these grow beds are full of water. They're full of water and nutrients, and the nutrients come from those big tanks where the fish are. And all those nutrients, all that nitrogen, all that stuff goes to making wonderful fruits and vegetables. So this isn't just eating delicious seafood, it's eating great food, but in harmony with the ecosystem that includes marine life. Another part of this is as an exhibit. People have been to botanic gardens all over the world. There's wonderful ones down in San Diego, botanic gardens, et cetera, and in conservatories around the world. This is not that. This is a garden. This is like sort of like the Garden of Eden. Everything in this particular aquaponics garden or Redondo Beach is edible. And so the idea here is you can see and taste the garden that you come to visit. So that would be a very special thing. And of course, we would have chefs as well, and they'd be picking these fresh produce for their studio kitchen, as well as fish and so forth from the aquaponics and aquaculture area. So what you're eating would have been harvested 5 minutes ago. And again, going into the studio kitchen experience that we talked about a moment ago, that's the idea behind these, how these things intersect together, not just the ecosystem and where these things occur in nature and how we need to protect them, how to produce them in a sustainable way, and then how to consume them in a way that is delicious and sustainable for your own personal health, as well as the health for the ecosystem which they're grown. So that is the presentation concepts that I have been working on. I'm going to leave it now for any questions. They asked me to be brief on it, and I said I'd give you my take on it.
Thanks a lot. I see a couple of hands up, but I'll ask a couple quick questions first, or just a couple comments first. First, I'm a local diver, boater, all that stuff. I'm in the water here in Redondo Beach all the time, and I've been active in the scuba community here for, as long as I've been out here. I forget how long that is. So I'm aware of a lot of projects up and down the coast that you mentioned. I'm aware of kelp restoration projects, eelgrass restoration projects. You didn't mention abalone, but artificial reefs. There's a new artificial reef very close to Redondo that's trying to restore kelp and try to undo some of the damage of the DDT that was dumped. So a lot of the stuff you mentioned is already ongoing projects, but it doesn't have a public face. There's nowhere the public can go to see what's already going on out there. So this fits in well with that and potentially gives a lot of ongoing, active, real projects a place to be. The other thing I'd mention to you that you're probably not aware of, inland in Redondo Beach, we have a school site, the Franklin School site near my house, and it's getting taken over by a group called the Friendship Foundation. They're going to put in a new campus, and it's going to be essentially a vocational school for special needs young adults, which fits in perfectly with a lot of what you're saying. So, that's potentially another site, potentially another group we can work with, potentially another group of people we can teach to cook and use food and teach about the ocean. So we already have a potential source of people to come and tour this facility. My one sort of concrete question here, looking at this facility and looking at the presentation, it looks like you would propose and you would schedule tearing down the existing building and, putting in a new campus and building that up. Do I get that right, or would you start out smaller and slower first?
Yeah, let me unpack those various really interesting observations, starting with abalone. And just, I should have mentioned that the very first abalone cultivation system commercial one was at Carlsbad for the state. And we provided a lot of the abalone for the restoration project from UC Davis in partnership with others. So we've been involved with that and are still actively involved with abalone work. So I should have mentioned that as one of the things we're especially interested in. I do also want to point out that your idea with the Franklin school site is very cool. We work with special needs groups. I organized the International Special Olympics Games in Europe, the first one, with Arnold Schwarzenegger as our host at that event because he's from Austria where we did the World Games. So we worked with special needs kids from 106 countries. So I was executive producer of that. So I'm very sensitive to the idea of special needs and all that. We have done training internships for people wanting to get into aquaculture with various community colleges, particularly Mira Costa, where my wife's a professor. And of the 9 students that got internship training, 7 of them are now in the aquaculture business. So we are into not training in an abstract way. We're training for people who can have a job and do something and make money. And then finally, as far as the question you raised about, Roger, you talked about what we would do. So as I mentioned, there's nothing particularly unique or notable about the Joe's Crab Shack. There's hundreds of them that are the same formula. And we wanted something that's distinctive and unique in the world, not just California with this concept. So we would, I don't know the exact schedule for all that because it's a whole lot of discussions that need to happen before that. But the idea, we would clear that site and put in these modular systems based on what people think is most important. This is why this meeting was scheduled to get input from people who know the area better than I do, which includes everybody sitting around this particular conference. And so we think, as you do, that these projects, these restoration projects, don't have a public-facing presentation where the public can get engaged, not just on a high concept level, but when they immerse themselves, they can actively be involved in the restoration. We wanted to train people, and my second phase of this thing would be to actually do restoration projects off the coast of Redondo Beach. So people would learn not just how to do it, but actually do it. So we think this is the introductory stage of what could be a series of things. But yes, we would remove we meaning whoever the Redondo Beach we would work with to do that, and then build this modular system. But as I want to emphasize, the idea behind this would be a nonprofit. So I don't have some financial stake in this other than to cover my costs and getting this going. But this is something that would be where representatives from Harbor Commission, from the city, from key patrons would be on the board of this and would help direct its vision, just like you're talking about, Roger. So the guidance of how it's shaped would include and be primarily directed by the community of Redondo Beach and its most interested and informed community members.
Thanks. Okay. I'll go to the commission, the order I saw the hands. Commissioner Callahan, I think I saw your hand up first.
No, I think Commissioner Light was first.
Okay. Commissioner Light, go ahead.
Thank you. Tom, great presentation. Appreciate it. You mentioned that you've been in discussions with patrons. Anything you can disclose there as far as, how sure does funding sound?
Yeah,
for this?
well, I would say that it isn't just one group that you're well familiar with, Jim, but actually several people. I'm going to be having a meeting in 3 weeks with some very well-heeled people, let's put it this way, people of immense wealth that love this idea, that are very concerned about the future of the oceans and the inflection point that it's facing in terms of its ongoing health. And just like Roger had pointed out, they want to see how people, if there's a facility that can really connect people to this thing in an experiential way. One of the people who's been a guiding light for me is Jerry Schubel, who's my father-in-law, who ran the Aquarium of the Pacific for 15 years. And I know they raised $150 million for their stuff that he was doing. And he just recently retired. But yes, I'm going to be tapping on his expertise and his network of supporters to see if we can do something that's not an aquarium. I'm not proposing gigantic life support systems like an aquarium at all. but everything's virtual. Everything's interactive in terms of a lot of the stuff I showed you other than the aquaponics stuff. But the idea there, Jim, is that the people I'm talking to are very media savvy people who understand what they call experiential learning, interactive media, stuff like that. And so, yes, there is a lot of interest for that. But I also will point out that on a state and certainly federal level, I've been benefit of receiving government grants on federal and state level that have been not insignificant private foundations. But it's not for me, it's for various projects, but including other groups that I'm not going to get into right now. But for this project, what's nice about it, it has all the ingredients. One of them is the example of childhood, early development health and food deserts. Not that Redondo Beach is a food desert, but there's still underserved communities in Los Angeles area. And there's a lot of funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, from other groups that want to get kids to eat healthier diets and to learn about sustainability and careers and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of different funding streams, federal, state foundations and private individuals and corporations. One last group that I will point out is companies that we already work with, big companies that sell food, let's put it that way. I'm not allowed to say these names of these companies, but they're companies you're familiar with. You buy food in California. So they like the idea of having a place that says, where does the seafood come from? And how is it grown sustainably? That's something that everybody who's in the seafood business wants to educate the public about. And so that's why big corporations, and I'm not talking about McDonald's, I'm talking about companies that are more focused on healthy foods and food that is more whole in nature, let's put it that way.
Okay, thanks. Are you open, or is this concept open to teaming with other nonprofits? Like we have Waterfront Education that's going on, that's looking for a place to operate out of. We've got the sea bass grow out facility that lost its home. And then I think Roger brought up there's a potential, shark research organization that would like to operate out of the harbor. Do you see this being programmable to serve multiple needs like that, or?
I do. I think there's a way to do that, Jim. I think the art is to do it within a set of organizing principles. So it's not a free-for-all and a platform for everything. It's got to have integrity and principles that have a very important educational component to it, that has responsible, sustainable practices and all those things. I'm sure those foundations support those things, but we want to manage that so the quality has got to be exceptional. What we present there, and we want to get content and information from all the talented people you have there. I know there's a lot of shark experts in Long Beach, particularly, and other places that are some of the best shark experts in the world, and aquariums and others that we are very well acquainted with or interested in collaborating. But the idea here is that we want to certainly have the local community feel they're welcome to collaborate with us and to create these things and find a home where they may need to have resources that would support what they do. But our mission here is not just educational. It's educational, but it's also got to be fun. It's got to be entertaining. It's got to be, I call it collateral learning, right? You're going to learn a lot of cool stuff, but it's got to be something that is absolutely irresistible and enjoyable for people to come to and be attracted to come to Redondo Beach because it's an amazingly cool and fun place to go. So it's a combination of keeping those things in balance.
I think the Waterfront Education would particularly fit that bill. And I don't know if Julie Cole's in the audience tonight, but she could speak to that more. She's the one running it today. And I think this could be a kind of a jump starter to kick up, what she can offer in that, because you've got a lot more interactive resources behind it, not just, PowerPoint slides or something like that. So anyway, you answered my question there. The last thing I wanted to say was, I see the potential for also augmenting existing businesses and activities in the harbor if you're open to it. For example, I could foresee, sitting in on a whale presentation or a whale augmented reality thing and then going out on a whale watching trip.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's exactly what we're thinking. There's a lot of stuff that you mentioned with these marvelous people who are doing educational programs right now, which we would be eager to collaborate with, not just passively, but really look forward to that. when you get to the point where you're going out there and connecting people to the open ocean, that is a particular great interest. As I said, my wife's an oceanography professor, right? She's just got back from Hawaii yesterday when they were doing all kinds of stuff out in the ocean with whales and with diving. Oh, you can't imagine the list. But Redondo Beach is a launch pad for me, where I mean, and for this program, meaning that this program starts here, and then they go out to the surrounding area where they're doing whale watching or restoration projects or other resources in the area. So this is, I guess I'd call it like a catalyst that can help influence even other things that get developed in and around Redondo Beach, or things that are already there. This becomes an organizing principle of project elements that can keep growing incrementally and adding other components to it. That's why it's designed in a modular way rather than just some big giant bricks and mortar thing. It's based more on an organic growth model.
I could even see it hooked to some dive companies. It took me years to find my first octopus, and that was on my bucket list of things I wanted to see underwater with an octopus. And now that I know what I'm looking for, I see them much more frequently. If I'd have had something like an AR, experience at a facility like this and seeing what you look for, that would have accelerated my actual finding of my first octopus.
That is a very cool idea. That hadn't occurred to me. The only octopus I know is my attorney. But other than that, I'm just kidding. But I think that we could do a lot of things with that. I think that's a lot of fun. I like it.
Yeah, and things like horn sharks, where you look for a horn shark and identify their habitat. And it helps steer your diving experience where, for me, it was jump in the water and then look around, which is a slow way of discovery. And this would help accelerate finding the cool stuff. Anyway, I don't want to take up any more of your time. That was a great presentation. I'm fully supportive of that use for the Joe's Crab Shack.
Well, I sure look forward to working with you, Jim. And we've had other discussions, you and I, because we met earlier. And you've been, a lot of the ideas that I've incorporated here come from some of the ideas you've already shared with me. So I've tried to incorporate some of your ideas already, and we're going to continue to do that. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Jim. Commissioner Callahan, go ahead.
Thank you, Roger. Jim said a lot that I was going to say. I should comment that octopi always find me. I don't have to look for them. The one thing that really stands out to me that's missing, the component, is the on the water component. And, I know it was brought up, whale watching, but that's just such a small part of it. Going out and actually looking for the sand dollar beds and the Garibaldi in the rocks. I mean, that's nice, but it isn't the same on a screen or artificially as it is actually when kids see them themselves. Or adults. I've seen adults just ooh and ah. I know we can't be everything to all people and every project, but I think the on the water component is really, really important. And the other one is drones are nice, but underwater robotics is important as well. And an educational facility that helps kids get into underwater robotics, I think would be a wonderful component.
Those are really great ideas. I want to unpack those one at a time, all of which I completely and wholeheartedly agree with. As far as marine sensors, both those that are drones and those are other types of marine systems, we've been involved with that research for 20 years. So we really, really want to incorporate that. Mm-hmm. What I didn't want to do is overwhelm people. As far as a program like we call them the Oyster Rangers and Tide Pool Rangers, and programs where young kids can go out and restore an oyster reef or something like that, or a tide pool, explore it, or even further, getting in and out into the water, are things that we very much want to do. We want to start, Commissioner Callahan, in like step by step by having people physically go to a touch tank and physically touch these things. A lot of the children and adults are kind of afraid of things in the ocean. I mean, I know you guys aren't because you're harbor commissioners that wrestle octopi every day, but for the average person, getting to have some initial experience, and then we would want to train docents and others to go out and do that. As I said, one of the key educators, and this would be my wife, who just got done working with like 18 graduate students in Hawaii and going out into the water, these different environments. We want to do that too. And that's kind of step two. Step one is to have a base of operations. I used to run a nature center where we did a lot of interpretive and experiential work. It was not in the marine environment, but the idea of doing that in Redondo Beach is of enormous interest to us. There's a cultural aspect to this as well, and how different peoples connect and explore the ocean and its traditions and all that. When I started opening up that kimono a little bit too wide, it becomes a little bit. There's so much opportunity there, and we're at a point of saying, let's choose what really matters. This is what you're saying, Commissioner Kellen, is particularly of interest to me, because when you physically contact and explore and touch these spaces, you're changed in a way that you never can when you're looking at things virtually, touching them and tasting them and feeling them, and that changes your life. And so I couldn't agree with you more.
And lastly, the one thing I don't want to happen is, you ask kids where does milk come from, and they go, a carton. I don't want kids thinking that mussels and clams and things of that nature come from boxes hanging on a rope underwater.
That's right.
I want them to understand where they actually come from.
Yep.
So, taking them out on walks to see clams in the water, which we do have, not like we used to, but we do have them. I think that's important as well, so that they don't think that they come from a box on a rope.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we do, as I said, tide pool restoration work, reef restoration work, and go out there and show what a natural ecosystem looks like, how it functions, and how to maintain and protect it. Because these places that you're talking about are sometimes over harvested or over consumed. And so these natural ecosystems, I'm not talking about farming. I'm talking about, when I talk about restoration aquaculture, I'm talking not about hanging down and growing things from ropes or in trays. I'm talking about on the seafloor and on rock structures. Those are the kinds of things that I'm referring to when I talk about restoration aquaculture. So the idea of having people explore those things is important. Okay. And for some of those people who want to actually get involved with reestablishing those rich habitats in Redondo Beach is something that we would want to be the party to and helping support.
Okay. Thank you very much. I enjoyed your presentation.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Bauer, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes. Yes, and I hit mute twice. But yes, thank you so much for that presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I also support it because, as we all know here, the Earth is in plenty of trouble, and of course, the ocean, it affects the ocean, and that affects all of us. So educating the public and helping them understand what they can do, even having something, how they can get involved is insanely valuable. You mentioned the modules that you want to deploy this in. Do you use those modules in Carlsbad?
No, we don't. I came to learn that from a group that helped develop those, as I said, initially at MIT, and then they spun up a company. But these modules don't have to be that particular form, but that type of an architectural design plan is of interest to me because it can be deployed quickly and really can get things up and built and functioning within 3 months rather than 3 years. So that's why I'm attracted to that. The other part about it is, there's content that goes along with that. And this gives us some adaptive flexibility in terms of how we structure those systems there. So I just wanted to have it be where there is flexibility in the design and scaling of what we do. And what I put together is just notional. It's what I think makes sense. But the final form of this is going to be up to the insights that Tom, that you have, Vicki, the whole team, Roger. All you guys have a lot of ideas that need to have your fingerprints on this and what you think we want to emphasize. And so, my approach is one of making, designing a general framework for how we could do this stuff, and then building on areas that say like because I want to emphasize more the interactive physical interaction with the natural ecosystems. I'm all about that. And so we want to promote that.
No, I love it. And I personally love the module idea. And I'm just curious, I mean, as far as, I guess right now we're just in the idea phase. So actually like how much, how you envision phase one, I guess we're coming up with even what phase one looks like is something that will be for all of us essentially to start looking at what that should look like and how much that's going to cost.
Yeah. Well, I started it, I mean, I'm starting at something which doesn't have such a gigantic price tag. A lot of the people that I'm talking to who are interested in this idea want to put resources behind it that has really an enduring, exceptionally attractive destination, but they want to make sure that the content of what's there, when you create interactive media and you create these things, those things also cost money. And they want to make sure that there's something that can reach a huge audience. Even though you want to have this wonderful experience for people who go to Redondo Beach, we want to reach people who can't go to Redondo Beach every day. People who are in Redondo Beach or the surrounding community say, I want to log in to these experiences. My school can only take so many field trips a year, or I can only go there so often. But this allows the reach to be anywhere in the world, but regionally. And it's going to be motivational. Say, I really want to go there. I've seen this experience. I gotta go there. I gotta see what they're doing. But it also allows a greater access. So that's the idea behind this. So it isn't just a bricks and mortar science museum. It's something like that. It's something very experiential. Yeah.
No, it makes a ton of sense, especially the idea of being an attraction that brings people to the pier, right? That essentially helps out all the businesses. Of course, in the end, it is putting on how the numbers pen out ultimately, right? So that you can have something that you can afford a class A, a destination essentially that really is impactful and
well,
leads
that's
people.
right. We, as a nonprofit, is the way I'm envisioning this for people who are under-resourced community members would not be charged anything. We want to have people have full access for people who can't afford any kind of an entrance to anything. But we've got to make sure that it does keep its doors open and there's revenue coming in. And that's why these interactive needy components are, people can log on and subscribe to them for those who can afford to do that. So it isn't just, and obviously we want to have a destination that is the finest experiential learning environment about the ocean in the world in Redondo Beach. I don't want to do something that isn't really amazing. But as you point out, Tom, it's got to be where the community says, we are so proud of having this in our community. This is the coolest thing. And it hopefully would inspire other components of what becomes this waterfront to complement that with other sorts of features, because we can't be everything to everybody, like everybody's been saying, but it might inspire others to say this could be tied to other restaurants and other destinations. We are really in about health and wellness. And we were looking at a thing I worked on a long time ago in a discussion with some other folks at another media organization called Fit for Adventure. But how do you get ready to go out on adventures and be ready to do those things? And so those aren't things that we're going to do, but other places, instead of just another sports club with weights and, saunas, have something that says, we're going to teach you how to get ready to have a great adventure. Go to Redondo Beach because they're going to set you on a course to go on the adventure of a lifetime and learn the skills to do that. So those are ideas that aren't us, but could complement us in what Redondo Beach becomes in terms of an identity that's distinctive from anybody else.
Yeah, no, I really like the idea. Well, thank you so much for the time and this presentation. I love it. Thank you so much.
So it's a real pleasure.
Thanks. Okay. I don't see any other hands up. I'll make one last comment that having an educational facility, especially with this stuff there, makes me really excited about rebuilding that short pier. And Tom, I'm not sure if you know this, but we have a short pier currently called the Sport Fishing Pier, not a great name for it, very near where this proposed educational facility would be. It's currently condemned. We talk about rebuilding it. We're not sure what it would do. It's just kind of more square footage, one more pier next to a pier we already have. But having a boat pier and being able to get people out on the water near an educational facility like this makes me really excited about rebuilding it. It really gives that pier, a potential purpose, a potential use. it really makes me want to bring that pier back and have it near, a facility like this.
Well, me too. I know, I will tell you one last comment from my standpoint, and I'll check out. I know you've got other business besides my presentation. I wanted to first of all say thanks to Mike Wazansky and to Bill Brand, who have encouraged me to work through these ideas, and Jim Light, others that I've had a chance to meet with, like Greg, to talk about these ideas and shape them a little further, and with some local patrons who think it's exciting. But it's an opportunity. I love Redondo Beach. I think it's a very cool spot. And it's something that is about to be redefined based on what you guys figure out and what we can perhaps do together. One thing that would be important to me, because one thing that was asked by somebody, I don't know which one of you guys, said, well, what about resources and funding? Here's my challenge, is that I need to know if the city of Redondo Beach is serious about doing this particular concept. Only because I'm going to be talking to those people either way in 3 weeks' time. And I have to get some inkling if this is something that I'm not asking for a contract or anything like that. I need to know if we're on the right track, if the city wants to do this. There's an alternative location for me, and this is not to put any pressure on you guys, but I'm in Carlsbad. We're next to a power plant that's about to be completely removed. You've got a big power plant there. Ours is 90% removed. So they're going, what are you going to do there? And the city manager lives 2 doors down from me. He says, Tom, you got these cool ideas. What do you get? What do you think about for that? And I said, nothing. I've got another project that I'm kicking around with some friends of mine up in Redondo Beach. One of who was a big patron of the Aquarium Pacific that I got to know through my father-in-law. I said, Tom, do something there. And I said, so my first impulse is to put this out for the Redondo Beach guys, say, we think this is cool, let's figure it out. Or they say, you know what, we got other ideas. We want to put more restaurants or shopping centers, whatever else we want to do there. There's lots of ideas that you can do. That's not my thing. I'm in education and ocean conservation and experiential learning. That's kind of my deal. So if this fits for you guys,
already rose as one of the top uses for the SWA analysis. So, and it wasn't on the drawing table when we started. So
I talked with those guys. We seem to hit it off pretty well, Jim. So, but again, it's your voice, the voice of the commissioners is the first group that they wanted me to talk to, that Mike said to talk to, is you guys. You're where it starts. And so we got to see if it fits within your thinking and your program priorities. And if it does, I'm eager to learn about it. But what I'll wait for you guys to have to convene separately than interacting with me. And then I'll be circling back to Mike Wazansky. He's kind of my point of contact with the city. And then he'll give me guidance as to whether or not there's some receptivity to move forward with these ideas, or you want to look at other alternatives.
Thanks. And Tom, sorry to hold you here another little bit, but we had one more hand come up. Commissioner Curzon, did you have a question?
Sorry, yes. Really appreciate the presentation and the idea that you're putting forth here. There's a lot of goodness in a number of ways. Certainly a proponent of putting an educational element to the harbor and one that ties into the ocean. There's even things that you brought up in your presentation that have some STEM tie-ins with drones and other virtual reality, a lot of elements there. I love what you said about tying into folks that can't get here with a virtual or a Zoom approach for individuals or classrooms. And also the comment you made about setting up principles that we then would use that you would then use to establish how you form the partnerships with other nonprofits to really make it exceptional. That really resonated with me. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I just want to make one last comment to that. And I appreciate what you said, Leslie. I've been working on STEM education for about 25 years and what they call STEAM education, by adding the arts to that as well. And we did a program a few years ago with the Department of Energy where we had children actually build drones from rapid prototyping from scratch, using GoPros and building them. So kids, I'm talking about 11 and 12-year-olds, build functioning drones. And the amazing thing of these young girls, especially who oftentimes get excluded from this engineering and design process. We're the all-stars of the whole program. And so we find that to be particularly important, that they learn how to make a work product as well as using it. And so that process of science, technology, engineering, and art and design. So these drawings that I showed you are my own drawings. They're not off the shelf. They are things that I design, and I teach people how to do that kind of stuff. And I find it particularly fun to teach young kids how to do design work that you can print and produce into products. So for exploration, for adventure and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for that. And we would, if this is something that the city wants to do, we would integrate those kinds of STEM activities as part of the complement to the core curriculum for the local school district. And again, I'm not talking about all LA, and I'm not talking about the world. I'm talking about Redondo Beach, period. So we want to start with that community and developing programs for the students and the citizens of the town where you guys call home.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you, Roger. Thank you, Tom, Jim, everybody.
I'm sorry, Trey. Yes, we do have one person from the public. Mr. Mark Hansen, go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Good evening, commissioners. Mr. Grimm, Mark Hansen, King Harbor boater and a member of the Harbor Amenities Working Committee. First off, I just want to ask staff, can you check your Zoom in log? Julie Call from Waterfront Education has been trying over and over to try to get onto the meeting and is not having any success. I had a bunch of trouble getting on the last one. At any rate, this is just fantastic news. What a wonderful program. The three of you who were on the working committee will recall that maybe our second or third meeting, I mentioned to the consultant staff that we hadn't really talked about education yet, and they assured me they would. And at the very next meeting, they had labeled Joe's Crab Shack for a potential education facility. That made me feel really good. Sadly, in the third drawing they did of the Seaside Lagoon, they showed the Seaside Lagoon now suddenly expanding to the north, taking over Joe's Crab Shack. And I've been very, very concerned about that. So I hope what I'm seeing tonight is a wonderful turn in the right direction. It's been commented many times that after spending $750,000 to buy Joe's Crab Shack out, we really need to do something cool there to make the taxpayers happy. And I think this absolutely fits the title of cool for sure. Do want to repeat what Jim Light mentioned about, we have a couple programs in the harbor here, Waterfront Education, Julie Call's program. She's over at the AES power plant, but that's a temporary location. We're going to probably have to find her something midterm, but then long term, oh my gosh, Thomas, you two need to meet. You guys talk the same language. I'm getting texts from her right now. She goes, that's my thing. That's my thing. Yeah, so she's quite excited, and she'd give you a wonderful local tie-in. Also, of course, the White Sea Bass program, we need to find a new home for them. So you've got two great local groups, that would just super tie you in with the local community. And I guess back to that lagoon concern there, if we've got some great momentum here, I think somebody needs to chat with our consultant and tell them to throw away that drawing that showed the lagoon on top of Joe's Crab Shack. We have something way more wonderful to do that. Small point about getting on the water. Julie Call's program, I think she's got about 12 SUPs. And well, you heard Commissioner Callahan mention this, and yeah, Julie's been texting me here, about, that she can handle that on the water part for you. That is exactly what she does. Her whole thing is getting the kids out onto the water. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Mike. I wanted to say one thing or a couple of things about your comments, starting with the SUP. So I've been working with a guy, Skip Pomeroy, down at the University of California, San Diego, who's developed a way to grow algae that produces a biodegradable stand-up paddleboard that you essentially grow. And this is something that students have already done. And there's another version of that we've also designed so the students can make those things as well as use those. As far as the white sea bass program, the white sea bass hatchery, the Fish and Wildlife runs is about 300 feet from my farm. So we're pretty well acquainted with white sea bass. I'll tell you one funny story about that in parting, Mark. When they were releasing these white sea bass every year, this is one partly with the help with the Hub SeaWorld Research Group, and they wanted to scare away the seals who were preying upon those sea bass when they were being released. And so they made these loud noises to scare them away, which worked one time. And then it functioned as a dinner bell, right? So the seals that I guess they're releasing sea bass and no more sea bass. But as far as the program with Julie Call and incredibly talented, enthusiastic people like yourself, I would be absolutely thrilled to work with people like those who really want to make a difference in learning how to, we had discussed with folks all kinds of fun activities as well, that from boat building to lots of other fun things, but it's just too much to tackle in one call. So we can shape things around some of the special programmatic opportunities that could evolve over time, starting with a core program and then finding out where the constituents that want to partner and help develop some of these programs could add other features to that, which we can talk about at a later date. But Mike, Mark, do all those guys, if we could maybe have another meeting with the public of those who think this is fun to work on, I'd be more than willing to unpack this further. But my first point of guidance is going to be Mike Wazanski is going to say, here's how the city wants to explore next steps if there are next steps to explore.
Great. Well, thank you. We will get Julie Call's contact in for O2. It's so sad. She's over here texting away to me, frustrated that we've been working on this for 15 minutes. We can't figure out how to get her on. So yeah, I don't know if Lori, if you guys can figure out a way to get her on. But it's great meeting you, Thomas. Look forward to meeting with you in the future.
Likewise. Thanks.
Hey, Tom. Thank you very much. I guess that's it at this point for the evening. But you've given us a lot to think about, and I think you'll hear from us or the city with more information soon.
Okay, thank you very much. You guys have a great evening. I'm going to dash out to my next meeting here. See you later.
Thanks for your time. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Let's see. Before we go on to the next agenda item, we do have Mike on now. Any comments or actions or motions at this point? Or, Mike, what would you like to hear from the Harbor Commission at this point? I mean, obviously there's a couple other local educational, potential facilities or groups we could hear from. This isn't, if this were a normal thing, you'd talk about going out for competitive bids. Maybe this is the lead contractor and we do a yes and look at supplementing this with the local stuff that fits in with the philosophy. Are you looking for support from the Harbor Commission or opinion from the Harbor Commission at this point? Or?
Well, I think that a couple of ways to do this. Clearly, all of you echoed, I think, support in your comments. I think that was obvious to me just listening, and I'm so glad you took this conversation up tonight. Just a chance to sort of digest and receive what Tom's been working on. I think his concepts evolved. I think he's done a really good job identifying different elements that can be, fairly easily implemented and sustainable post-implementation. A lot of times with facilities like this, they can get stale over time. This has got so much flexibility. It can evolve and adapt really almost on a seasonal basis. Can sort of stick with core principles and then sort of progress from there based on the evolution of science and technology and everything else. So I really think Tom has done a fabulous job synthesizing something that can be digestible to the community. You're really the first filtration point for that. I thought your comments tonight were all spot on. I thought they were helpful. And I think we'll continue to encourage Tom to work with members of the community who have some real sort of boots on the ground experience and can also be accretive to the process. And, if you want to, as a general motion, say, hey, we're supportive of this concept and want the city continue to support and consider it, I think that would be one action tonight without really getting into the fine points. But tonight was really just sort of a rough litmus test to determine, is this something that we think the community is going to be excited about? And the comments I heard from all of you, which candidly came as no surprise, having seen some of this, were very positive. And I think my takeaway is that generally you were all very supportive. So you can memorialize that if you'd like. It would be helpful. But ultimately, I'll leave it to the commission to determine what it would like to do as it relates to tonight's motion.
Okay, I see Commissioner Light's hand up, and I'll go to you in a second. Just speaking for myself, I definitely like this and I support it. And, we'd be hard pressed to find someone with this extensive a plan and these resources and this much. But that said, we have our own, very favorite existing, local educational items that we'd really like to, find a home for, see a part of this, consider seriously. So we certainly don't want to, throw the baby out with the bathwater and forget about the local stuff that we love that makes, Redondo. Commissioner Light, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, well, I hope, Mike, that as this progresses, if there's some community working group you consider, including a subgroup of the Harbor Commission to represent, this side of the equities going forward. I know I'd certainly volunteer to do that. I would like to make a motion to put to a vote of the commission that the commission would send the message both to the city council and to the SWA through the subcommittee that we're very supportive of this activity and think Joe's Crab Shack we should be preserving that area for some type of educational opportunity, whether it's this or not. And so that's the motion I would make at this point.
Second.
Let's see. I was thinking to myself about that. I was having the discussion in my head. So I'll ask that out loud. Any discussion out there?
No.
The friendly amendment I would like to make is underlining that we'd like to also consider waterfront education, Julie Cole's program, white sea bass, and other local things.
I totally agree.
If I can make a quick comment, Roger, I completely agree. I don't think there's anything that's got to be mutually exclusive about this concept. I really think the opportunity for us to find a home for all of our local providers is still a charge for all of us. And I think there are other, if not part of this directly, which I think is a possibility, in those instances where it's not, there are other outlets in the waterfront through other sites. So I think I'm hopeful that we can run all of those on a parallel track.
Yeah, I would just say that I totally agree with what you just said, right? Because it doesn't all have to be shoehorned into one spot necessarily, unless it just happens to work out that way. I think it organically grows that way. And the other part I was thinking is that if this is this central attraction, that is something, in fact, I would have even encouraged that maybe it does cost money to get into, and then we, for people who are disadvantaged or whatever, that we somehow work out programs for it, but that raises its value, right, to what it is, to what it could be, right? And therefore have it actually very much self-sustaining, right? That it's something very valuable. So it becomes something very valuable for the harbor. Right. My 2 cents.
Okay.
So I accept the friendly amendment, Roger.
I appreciate that. Thanks. And I'm not sure it was necessary, but I don't want Julie to, miss her opportunity to talk on Zoom just because of technical issues and think that she's, got to move to Marina Del Rey.
And we'll connect Julie with Tom. We'll do that through staff. Yeah, we'll make sure that happens.
We've had white sea bass here. We've had other things here. We may have white sharks here next month. We should get Julie here soon, just so that, we and the community, have a better picture of what she does. So any other discussion on Jim's motion? And I think we had a second. Do we have to go to public comment? It's been a month since I've done this.
There's no more No more public comment, nothing on e-comments.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think
let's,
I think we need a second on your friendly amendment though, and I'll second it. Don't we?
Thank you.
I think so, yeah.
I think you're right to be formal. Depending on which set of rules of order we're going with, not all of which allow friendly amendments, but you know, we're a pretty functional group here. Okay, let's go to do a roll call vote.
Sure. Commissioner Walters,
Yes.
Commissioner Light,
Yes.
Commissioner Kazan,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilroy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
and Chair Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, moving on.
Okay. I think then we are up to the discussion on the city's budget. Mike, thanks for letting us rearrange the budget and do it this way.
Absolutely. Really was eager to see you all hear from Tom and get him going. So, and I was going to chime in, but I thought, no, it's good. Let's let Tom go anyway. I don't have a presentation tonight, really. I'm on the listening tour right now. We're in the process of developing our annual budget. The city manager's proposed budget is due to the city council by charter on May 15th. We're working through that now, working through different department submissions and considerations for budget modifications, which we call decision packages, and really just assimilating all of that information, what will be our proposed 22-23 fiscal year operating budget. I'm here tonight to hear from all of you, not after we present the budget, but before we present the budget, so that can help inform us as we go through this analysis. So I've got my listening hat on. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I know Commissioner Light mentioned subcommittees and the like, and that's fine. I don't want to discourage you from doing that. That'll probably be more beneficial to evaluating the proposed budget that might come out in May and June as you think about synthesizing your letter of final recommendations or comments. Tonight, I'm here to hear, from you all in a very raw fashion, what's top of mind as it relates to harbor activities, what's top of mind as you consider the community and things in areas of strength and weakness in our operations and areas you think we ought to be looking at, bolstering through the budget, and, really just kind of take your feedback and answer any questions you might have. That's really it. No formal presentation for me tonight.
Thanks. Excellent. First, I want to say I really appreciate you being here to do this. The Harbor Commission doesn't have a budget itself, so having you come here to talk budget with us, thank you for the respect and thank you for bringing, budget to the Harbor Commission and getting our input. From big to small, there's the federal infrastructure plan, and I was disappointed to see that Ted Lieu is already announcing, I think 11 or 12 projects going on in the area coming out of that funding plan. So I hope it's not too late for, King Harbor to get a piece of federal money. We could certainly use it. We've talked about working toward that over the years. The breakwall needs some repair in addition to the dredging. The dredging is probably city funded. The breakwall may hopefully be federally funded. Sea level rise and many other things could be federal funded. One thing we've been trying to do next on the city budget is just funding a better study of the condition of the wall, the internal walls around the breakwall, the hardscape. If you're walking down the International Boardwalk, you're walking on a cap, and right next to you is a vertical cement wall that's in poor shape. And the whole harbor hasn't really been analyzed there, and we don't have a great plan for sea level rise. We do have expected numbers for sea level rise coming in 2030, 2050, and 2100. And when we were working with Commissioner Proud, we were talking about beginning to develop a plan for what those levels of rise might look like, so that whether federal money came in or state money came in or just a partnership with an existing master leaseholder, we knew what to do, so that, when there was funding available from any source, we had a better idea of what it might be, and, not just something piecemeal. And then going to the smaller stuff, the stuff I'd love to see the city budget is just, some of the smaller stuff that'll come out of the amenities plan. Signage, benches, a better look and feel through the harbor. Obviously, a lot of ongoing maintenance. You don't have to go very far through the pier and the harbor before you see something that needs a coat of paint. Surface cleaning in the dining areas is something that got mentioned. The new dining area that will occur above International Boardwalk needs a lot of TLC. That'll need surface cleaning. It'll need foot patrols. It'll need more, more attention from the harbor police group. We'll need, as we develop the harbor plan and the boat ramp, we'll probably need more harbor patrol, and we'll need harbor patrol staff to support them. And the last thing I'll mention in this laundry list is just more staff for the waterfront and economic development. You have a group of nominally 3 people in the past. It's been 1 person for most of this year. Thank you very much, Lori, for keeping it alive. And that's when you can talk about anything going on in the city. You can talk about the Galleria Mall, the Artesia corridor, the aviation corridor, the village, which is a fantastic place to go. I wish the rest of Redondo was as nice as the village. That's all coming out of the Waterfront and Economic Development Office. You've got the Beach Life Festival coming, and then you've got everything we're doing with the amenities plan. So, Waterfront and Economic Development is just like a force multiplier for everything else going on in the city. So, I hope you'll staff him well and give Greg the funding he needs and back him up. So I'm done with my long-winded comments, and I'll start going to hands. Commissioner Hallinan, I think you were up first this time.
I am. You pretty much covered it. Thank you, Chair Carlson. The one thing I really did want to reiterate is the infrastructure. The splash wall going down Yacht Club Way is precarious at best. It's leaking, it's flaking, the light fixtures were falling down. They've now put little ones, which are not as good, but at least they're not falling over on people. That really needs to be looked at. I think one big storm and it's going to give way. Roger pretty much covered everything that I was going to say, so I'll keep mine short and move on. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for showing up.
Thanks, Vicky.
Thanks. Commissioner Late, I think you were next.
Thank you. Mike, I think you can see we've turned in some inputs to strategic planning. That gives you some idea of where we've had time to deliberate and put some ideas forward. We didn't do that the last strategic planning cycle. For whatever reason, it came up too quick and we just didn't have time. But I think that's a place to start. But I'll start my laundry list of things. I still want to push when we're working with the Corps on the break wall. We should really push to get them extend the south break wall. If we're serious about putting a boat ramp in there, the extension of the south break wall is something we talked about for years, but I kind of feel like it always just, I feel like it's been paid lip service. And I don't know that that's true or not, but that's the way it feels. I think we should really push for that because that will make the boat ramp safer and more operable through longer periods of time, even in the winter season. We've heard about a resiliency study that covers sea level rise, and I feel like we've not been a part of that. So I think that echoes onto what Roger was saying overall about sea level rise. We keep hearing about this, resiliency study, but I think we'd like to get involved with it from where it impacts the harbor and get something in concrete. What is the plan? Which dives into the infrastructure bill that's come out is, I think we're doomed if we sit there and say all sea level rise has to be borne by the tenants because they're going to want density to foot that bill. And so that's why I think getting money from the feds to help us do that helps us keep our harbor from being oversaturated with, it's already bigger than most harbors. If you go down to Dana Point, it's twice the size of our harbor, and its total capped build out under their current plan is 375,000. We're at 900,000 without any new development in our half-size harbor. So anything we can do to take cost off the tenants for sea level rise, I think is a benefit to our harbor overall. Moonstone Park, we keep bringing up. We have money for it. I know it's in the amenities plan. It just seems we keep kicking the can down the road. And the money that's there is what we get for the buck is getting less every year. And I think the city should prioritize. We got that money. Let's move forward on Moonstone Park. I thought originally SWA was supposed to, accelerate the Moonstone Park portion of the amenities plan, and it looks like it's just in parallel now, which was a little bit disappointing to me. I think the city should fund the sport fishing pier. I just think that the battle in the community and with the Coastal Commission to try to take that out or eliminate it isn't worth it. And I think we can move on positively with the harbor if we just make a decision that we're going to go forward and try to find funding for that. And quick flip, I think the public's confused on what's the will of the city there, and I think it's time to put our foot down and say one way or the other so we can move on. I'm interested, we should get the amenities plan out in summer, I guess now. Expediting, performing that amenities plan, executing on it, rather than just putting it on the shelf, actually moving forward, because we're all anxious in getting the harbor, I'm forgetting the word now, but I'm thinking rehabilitated. That's not the word, but
revitalized.
Revitalized. And it's been a long time, and we'd like to start seeing action on it. Mm-hmm. International Boardwalk, my personal feeling, I don't know how the rest of the commission is maybe 2 phases of it, put some makeup on it to make it look nicer. But I think with sea level rise, we had to take that opportunity and relook at it totally. My vision would be to, tear out that concrete, make reasonable sized establishments out of that. Make it 2-story so you have a second floor to look out over the ocean. And then also at the end where R10 all the way out to Captain Kidd's, make that the market hall. That's the one element that I feel like everybody liked out of the Center Cal plan. And yet, I don't see that. And I think that's a great location for it. You got some of that plaza on the top that's unused. You got dead space between those buildings. That would be a great place for a market hall. And it would attract people to the north end of the harbor from the pier. So we get that connectivity that the city's been looking for all these years. Harbor Patrol, I'm hearing all sorts of rumors on the Harbor Patrol. I would hope that would come to us fairly soon. But I think a harbor without a Harbor Patrol, or with a Harbor Patrol that's necked back so much that they're non-functional, is a bad thing for Redondo. I don't know of a harbor that doesn't operate without a good Harbor Patrol, robust Harbor Patrol. And I don't think police on the water is the same thing as a Harbor Patrol. So I would hope that we're retaining that, maybe even strengthening it. I agree with Chair Carlson's statement. I think, most harbors, you don't see economic development for the whole city combined with being in charge of the harbor. And that's a lot. We got a lot going on in both arenas. And so, I don't know how this staff gets everything done. I can see why things, get bogged down a little bit. And I'm still going to hit on, I would like the city to explore retention of at least some portion of the sales tax and the TOT in the harbor. We're in a structural deficit right now, at least for this year, we're running at a deficit in the harbor. And yet we're generating revenue from the hotels and the restaurants down there. We should be able to invest some of that back into the harbor. I rarely see general funds come into the harbor enterprise. So I would like to see us help put money back into the harbor, not just funnel it out to other parts of the city. So that's my quick pick list from just hearing what you were looking for tonight, Mike. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Commissioner Kilroy, go ahead, sir.
Hey, thank you. Congratulations, Mike, on your promotion to city manager. I've spoken to you in quite a while. Agree with a lot of what's been said, but of course, the bottom line is everything's got to add up. You don't have any decision packages made up yet, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And so part of that going forward is usually talk about deductions rarely do we see adding people in public works, in the police department allocation to the harbor. Do you have a feeling for the direction for any of those items?
Well, I can tell you that just about every department, with just a few exceptions, is still recovering from some former peak level of staffing, right? Public Works in particular, pre-pandemic had more personnel, largely in the area of park services, in some instances, personnel dedicated to the harbor, the waterfront area. Police, less so. They're largely budgeted from a staffing standpoint to near peak, not the 108 police officer peak back in the 90s, but more modern peak. Fire is sort of balanced to where they've been. But I think the big question for what we can do in the waterfront next fiscal year in terms of spending, and I appreciate everything we've heard and agree with all of it. It's really just going to be a matter of affordability. What can we realistically allocate resources for the next fiscal year and really staff ourselves with and task ourselves with? So the structural deficit that Jim mentioned, it has been real in both the uplands and tidelands the last few years. We've had to freeze positions in order to try to maintain some balance there. We did deficit spend last year, at least as it related to budget. I'm hopeful that with year-end financials, we'll have actually outperformed budgeted estimates and we'll be in a better shape to come back with perhaps some decision packages that would restore staffing directly to the uplands and tidelands area. It was last year where for the first time we actually spent general fund proceeds on initiatives in the waterfront. And to Jim's point, first time I can recall us ever doing that in my 16, now plus years with the city. I could see us doing that again some next year because there is a strong priority in the waterfront, and we do still have bond proceeds from our pension obligation refinancing from last year that lend themselves to one-time expenses. And I think some of those will be at least recommended for projects in the waterfront area. Because as has been mentioned, the waterfront is a major economic driver for us on the whole. And as successful as the waterfront is, we are in the greater community. You won't generally hear me advocate for redirection of general taxes to any one area in the city, whether it be the waterfront or regardless of how important it could be. But I could certainly, recommend where appropriate, subsidizing waterfront projects with other general resources where they've been accrued. And I believe we will be recommending some of that this year. But there's going to be a limit to what we can do. You know this, Matt, having budgets as a member of the council for many years. It's a balance test, and the waterfront has its needs. Park Services has its needs. North Redondo has its needs. The village has its needs. You all know this. You're very familiar with our process. It's not an easy document to make everybody happy with.
Well, that's why I was kind of wondering. I think from the harbor perspective, maintaining at least the status quo with regards to public works is really important. As was mentioned, every time you turn around, you can see things that need a coat of paint, cleaning, and we know that security and safety is, I don't want to say a concern, I don't want to blow things out of proportion, but making sure that we have the right coverage down there, both in harbor patrol, both on the water and off the water, is important to providing the right feel and atmosphere down there, so people are going to want to go down there and feel safe. The other thing I'll bring up, which hasn't been brought up, the parking garage. Yeah, I consider it the elephant in the room. I believe from the last engineering report, we've got approximately 5 years left of usable life on the parking garage. And, that can be argued and fudged. I know we've been doing ongoing maintenance or maintenance projects to extend that out. Do we have a financial plan for the parking garage replacement?
We do not have a specific financial plan for a replacement facility. I think right now, given our level of resources, we are routinely updating our conditions assessment. In fact, Walker Parking is completing another round of that assessment as we speak. I think we received the draft update a couple of weeks ago in Public Works. They're analyzing that material. And as we finalize that, that's a report that'll certainly be brought back to the commission. And it's going to recommend for us another phase, another robust phase of structural renovation to continue to extend the life and usefulness of the structure. But prices are going up. It is going to be difficult, to continue to fully fund that effort. We're going to do our best, but to answer your question specifically, do we have enough? Do we have a plan to replace the structure right now? We do not. I think right now we're in maintenance mode, and not just topical maintenance, but structural maintenance, meaning that we're providing enough reinvestment and investment in the space to feel confident that it's actually going to be structurally sound as we progress. I think it's desperately due for significant lighting upgrade. I think it's desperately due for the traditional technology that can support any structure, regardless of its condition, from a space counter standpoint. And we certainly, from a safety and security standpoint, think it's time to at least investigate the installation of a number of cameras down there to help at least proactively defend ourselves in the structure. So all of those are capital projects that our staff are working on and will be considered, I think, as part of this proposed budget.
Yeah, I can't think of a higher priority. It's not something that generates a lot of conversation or talk. It's not necessarily real visible to people, but if we neglect that parking structure and reach a point where we get an engineering report that virtually red tags that parking structure, we will be in a major world of hurt. I don't know how else to say it, but it's got to be number one on the priority list, and we've got to spend the money we need to spend to extend the life of that. And I know it could be millions a year. Yeah,
and that's generally what we're seeing. I think this next phase could easily be in the just to really give you a goalpost, $2 to $4 million range just for the next round of renovation and reconstruction. And I could see this report identifying $30 million of repairs over the next 10, 15 years that will be needed for us to continue to extend the life. So, those of you, and I know all of you do, follow the cost of construction right now. It's on an exorbitant track, which, makes me nervous because every dollar we have in the CIP right now, we're losing buying power as we wait. So, it's going to be a challenge. I couldn't agree more. The Walker report is done, soon to be done, and it'll be before you all fairly soon, I believe. Probably at your next. I wouldn't be surprised if it's at your next commission meeting. If not, then you're the one after. So
well, there was we just had a black cat walk by.
Well, let's.
It's good luck. It's okay.
It's okay. Good luck. Okay, it's a good luck cat. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say it's scary to me, but from a financial perspective and not having really any reasonable kind of plan out there, we've got a lot of great ideas for the harbor and pier, and we've got an amenities plan that that everybody wants to get implemented, but it's not sexy to talk about. It's not going to make the headlines. But unless we address that parking garage, nothing else literally will matter down at the harbor. So that's, I'll leave it at that. And with regards to the budget, I just hope that from a decision package point of view, the harbor can be spared the knife, so to speak, and we at least maintain the coverage that we presently have. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah. So $30 million, 60,000 residents, we buy everybody a bicycle, and then we put in a bike path. Commissioner Bauer, your hand is up, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, this will be quick. First, I wanted to echo Chair Carlson's comment, but to thank you for coming and asking. That shows a lot of respect, and I really appreciate that. And echoing what all the other commissioners have already stated. The only thing is something probably fairly obvious. but things that make the, prioritizing things that make the harbor more attractive creates this reverse spiral effect in a way, because the more the people that show up and at the pier and spend money, the more income the pier generates. And then we can then spend more money on the pier. But right now we are kind of on this edge where I've heard from people who feel that there's times that it feels a little sketchy down there. And those words aren't good, right? We want, they want to see plants, just simple things, plants replaced, upkeep, more upkeep, right? The simple things basically. So, doing those things, I think there'd be a great big payback for those. So just something to think about. But thank you again. I appreciate your time. I know it's a tough job.
Thanks.
Okay, that's all the hands I see up. So again, sir, thank you very much for your time and coming before us. And, we'll work on getting you, budget packages, or at least, comments as individuals. I think our input to the strategic plan definitely holds up. What we're doing with the amenities plan, you can see obviously. So thanks very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback, and do stay engaged on the budget. Obviously, as it comes out in May, work your traditional review, whether that's subcommittee or folks. I think your comments, the letter that comes from the commission is well received by the council, well valued. I think it's time well spent. I certainly appreciate this commission's advice. It's helpful. And you're identifying things that I think are all top of mind, and it's just a matter of finding ways to fund them. And I will say the infrastructure, the grant world, we are fighting very hard for. We have made submissions to lose office for a couple of already identified capital projects in the harbor. Basin 3 seawall and improvements there being one of them, other sea level rise initiatives. So we're trying. We also, I think, are in the process of bringing on perhaps a consultant to help us with grant writing, grant applications. Right now, there's a lot of money out there. We don't always meet the demographics that they're looking for as they evaluate competitive grants from a social equity standpoint. But there's only so many waterfront municipalities out there, and most of them have similar demographics. So we're gonna fight like hell to try to get as much money as we can. And we're in an RFP process now. We're creating the RFP to bring on a consultant to try to help us with this. So
Mike, I'm sure you thought of this, but we have numbers from years ago from the Seaside Lagoon that say 70% were not from Redondo. They were from inland. So,
actually, it was almost 85% back then. And that is the first thing every time Bill and I are on a call with a state official lobbying for money. I use that metric all the time. Okay. And really the argument with county, with state, with feds is that we are, we have our residential demographics. That's one thing. They are what they are. But we are LA's playground. I mean, our beaches, our waterfront, our parks, South LA, East LA, we are the playground for all of LA County. And the demographics that visit our city are all across the board. They run the gamut. And really that message actually does resonate with our leadership, at the state and federal level as much as anything. And if you're ever in, close proximity with those folks, do your best to lobby, because it really is a group effort. So,
if there is a way to engage some of us to meet with some of them,
Yeah, no, I know you're always, I fully appreciate that. It makes a difference. And we try. We're on a lot of calls.
Yeah, no, I know.
Hat in hand begging for money. It's we really are. So and hey, we got 10 million last year for Seaside Lagoon. That was quite something. I mean, that was a big win. But yeah, we're gonna keep after it. I promise you that.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's really good to see you all, and enjoy the rest of your meeting. And we'll talk again soon.
Nice. Right. Okay, now we are. yeah. Careful, he could still be, watching on YouTube. People love this stuff. So now we're down to just the locals and Greg's first director's report. So
Yay!
Here I am, guys.
Take it away.
First of all, great comments, great discussion on the previous two items. A lot of thought went into that, so I appreciate that. Really, I just have some updates for you.
I apologize. Let me interrupt
go ahead.
you. Do we need to do public comment on the budget? Did we just miss a step?
No.
Okay.
No, we're okay.
All right. Sorry.
So yeah, just a couple updates. Our last Harbor Commission meeting was on March 14th, and that very next day, March 15th, the City Council met, and they actually approved the base design of the skateboard park that's going to go on Pad 10. I call it the base design because there was some talk about expanding the scope of work to be a little more grand in scale. And what they did was they approved the baseline, and then they kind of gave themselves an out and said that they could reconvene at a later date if they wanted to explore the expansion portion. But I think the timing of everything, they wanted to make sure that the baseline was in sooner rather than later. So that's the route they went there. And then just like you guys heard tonight, our city manager, Mike Wazansky, actually did a community workshop on the budget. So very similar to what you guys just did, but he heard from the community, and that was on March 29th. I got some feedback. That was a virtual and in-person one. We actually tested the council chambers with the new technology and the money that was in to upgrade the chambers. So it was the first guinea pig to see how things went. I think it went pretty smoothly. Let's see here, April 5th, the city council approved a first reading to actually change the municipal code to allow for skateboarding on the pier. So even though we had just approved a design concept, the municipal code was still out of whack and actually prohibited skateboarding on the pier. So we adjusted that. It still needs to go to second reading. That'll occur on April 19th. So not effective just yet, but will be effective prior to the skateboarding site being ready to go. Also coming up on April 19th, Captain Kids is going to be resurfacing their parking lot. If you go out there, there's some cracks and there's a couple potholes in their parking lot. So they're going to go ahead and resurface that. And then we're also going to be bringing back a couple lease contracts with 239 North Harbor, which is the Beach Life office, and 245 North Harbor, which is the former Ruby's building. So we'll be going 419 for those. In addition, I did talk about in-person meetings a little bit when we spoke about the city manager's workshop with the community on the budget. There is talk about going back to in-person meetings. City council is still deliberating on that. We're hopeful that one of the meetings in May, one of the city council meetings in May, will be an in-person hybrid version. We're not sure how it's going to look yet, but I wanted to keep you guys up to date. You may want to tune in when we find out what date that is, because I think the rest of the commissions, this one included, will be trailing fairly closely, depending on how it turns out. And then filming for a Food Network competition show just finished up. I don't know if you guys had seen any of that, but they were out there for about a week filming. I had never heard of the show myself, and I don't recall what it was called off the top of my head right now, but they did just wrap up, and it's expected to air sometime in June. So once we find out some of the details, we'll let you know in case you want to look for Redondo Beach in the background there. Other than that, we have a survey that's out right now for the King Harbor Amenities Plan. We spoke about that a little bit tonight. We set out a second survey on April 1st, and it's going to go live, or it's live right now, through April 17th. So let everybody know, take the survey yourself, advertise as much as possible. We're trying to advertise at all the hearings and social media and the city website just to kind of get it out there. That concludes my first report. I do see Jim Light has a question.
A couple of them.
On the skate park, did the city council leave it open for fundraising for that, the wall amenity?
You know, I don't recall discussion on any fundraising occurring. Lori, do you recall? I don't think it came up.
No, I don't recall. I'm sorry, I stepped out for a minute.
I was there and I don't recall it being fundraising, but I definitely, you know, it being like this summer's budget being mentioned.
It would be nice if it wasn't a city cost. I think that amenity adds a lot to that skate park. Having been a former skater, it's kind of a minimal skate park without that, and it's a game changer with it because that wall is screaming for use in a skate park. And I prefer the city didn't have to pay for it, so fundraising seems like, you know, getting some corporate sponsor or something like that to help fund just that adding that amenity would make sense to me. Is there a schedule now that's been approved by the council at the whatever you call it, the basic park?
There is. I'd have to check with Public Works on the exact dates. I'm not prepared with that right now. I'm sorry.
It was Greg's second day, you know.
Well, they were originally promising by the time, you know, the summer holiday rolled around, then obviously not going to make that.
And I think that was one of the issues with doing the addition. I think there had been delays, you know, for all the typical reasons. And without the addition, it would be ready in early summer. With the addition, it would be, you know, pushed well into the summer. I don't remember exact dates either.
Yeah,
that was
I do think one thing, you know, our deliberations on it helped this one because I saw the problems they had with Perry, you know, in segregating the skateboarding area from the rest of the playground. And I think we thought that through, having to contain skateboards within that area. So I do think our deliberation helped mitigate something that they're experiencing now at Perry Park. The beach life and Ruby's, I know I don't want to know the confidential details of that, but we were told before they're both going to be short-term leases. Is that correct?
Yes, we're looking at a 5-year lease with the standard 12-month termination by the city.
Early termination.
Yes, the city has the opportunity to provide 12-month termination for both leases.
Okay. And then the last thing, you know, I keep hearing rumors on the Harbor Patrol. When is something going to come to the Harbor Commission? I heard, you know, there's something that the chief did in his survey and has some recommendations on what to happen. And I've heard everything from catastrophic to it's not that bad. So when will we see something in concrete that we can deliberate on, or at least comment to?
You're right. There was an assessment done, and I know a portion of Mike's office. Some of the, you know, there's a new assistant to the city manager, and he's taking the lead on bringing that assessment through. You know, I have no idea about the timing of when that would come back to you guys.
Well, I would think it'd be part of the budget process, so it'd be nice for us to at least understand it before we go into the recommendation, before we go into the budget process. Right? It's going to affect funding for the harbor, no matter what you do, unless you're doing nothing, would affect Harbor Patrol budgets. So
absolutely.
I think this body should see that before final decisions are made, so we at least get to opine on it and make recommendations to the council.
Okay. I can.
Okay. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on the director's report? I had one question. Do we know yet when the next amenities plan meeting will be, or amenities subcommittee?
No, we don't have a date per se yet. It's April 17th, and talking about like a community workshop style.
Yeah.
Whatever the next set of dates are, you know. So I'd expect, you know, I would expect the survey closes, the subcommittee hears the results of the survey. And then the community hears the results of the survey, and then SWA writes that up and presents it to the commission.
The Chair
perhaps with
Carlson,
another workshop in there.
Chair Carlson, the last time or the most recent conversation about the next community meeting with SWA, it looks like likely mid-May.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know, and the sooner the better, so that
Of course.
as
Sure.
many people as possible can get to it. I'll make one last comment, which doesn't quite fit here, but Jim, you mentioned extending the south break wall when we were talking about the budget. And the reason I want to mention that now is because we have a storm coming in tonight. So there's heavy wind and a big swell. So this is an opportunity to go look at the break wall. So, perhaps this fits in with the director's report and other things we're doing. I'm sorry, this isn't better agendized, but, I would encourage people, if they have time, to go down and look at the area where, from Joe's Crab Shack around to Samba, where the boat ramp might be. The last time I did this with a storm, I have to confess, I'm not sure I'm a fan of extending the south break wall yet anymore. And I'd want to study that a little more carefully. Our harbor gets a lot of surge. There will be surge throughout the harbor tomorrow. If you go up to the mouth of Basin, I forget if they're numbered or lettered. If you go up to the mouth of the Central Basin where the Harbor Patrol office is during this big storm, you will see surge through the harbor. You will even see surge in the basin. So if you go to Moonstone Park and look at the cement wall at the opening to the North Basin, or the cement walls near Harbor Patrol and Portofino at the entrance to the Middle Basin, you'll see heavy currents and whirlpools because of the surge even going into those basins. And my concern is if we close off the mouth of the harbor, we'll still get surge. We'll just be getting really strong currents the way some harbors around here did during the tsunami. It was the tsunami that made me think of this. There were some harbors with narrower mouths that had really bad currents during the tsunami, the way we have kind of bad currents at the mouths of the basins. So if we were to close the harbor off, I'm concerned we would still have surge. We wouldn't necessarily be blocking waves, and we could get really strong currents there. We could get a tsunami or a storm issue. And if nothing else, we'd be tightening up the mouth of the harbor and putting paddle craft closer to boats just because it would become a choke point. So it was something I thought about during the tsunami, and I will go down tomorrow and look at the harbor and, take some pictures or video and see what I think of it again. But I wanted to mention that since you'd mentioned it earlier as part of the budgeting and federal process. So
yeah, so two comments on that. First, there is a study that looks at all of that from the Corps of Engineers from the time when they heightened the break wall, and that was something they just never got to. But it was a recommendation out of there, and you can look that up and see the data. They did better than modeling. They actually built a harbor. They built our configuration of harbor and directed waves at it, in a wave tank. So there's already data on that. But second, I think on the big days, there's the biggest days, there's nothing you're going to do no matter what. But I tell you, on relatively small days, I ride the swell that bends around the harbor mouth on my outrigger canoe, and to get speed and just have fun coming into the harbor. And I'm generally directed depending on the direction of the swell, either towards D or C. The way it wraps around there.
Are we supposed to be talking in detail about this? It's not on the agenda.
I was just addressing his comment.
I wanted to mention it since it was mentioned previously, just to say there's a storm tonight and tomorrow is a good day to look at it. So I apologize if I'm out of order. Hopefully this is the last storm we have for a while. Thanks. Okay, that was all I had. Commissioner Kilroy, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just quick question about the public amenities meeting. Are we going to have one in person?
Well, we're likely going to be taking the cue from City Council in terms of when we open up, in-person and hybrid meetings. I'm certainly open to it.
One difference is you could do it outside.
Well, the yacht club King Harbor Yacht Club offered their facility for it.
Yeah, and they'd be willing to hold it outside so that people are comfortable. It's a lot easier to social distance. It's a whole different dynamic outside. I don't really think you need to wait for city council to, I mean, it's just a whole different situation.
Well,
if you commit to doing it outside.
If you do it outside, you're also cutting off the virtual audience.
Do you really have to?
I mean, that's an opinion. Yeah, I mean, we could check it out, but I mean, I think people have gotten used to this Zoom world that we're living in, and the convenience of, you know, staying in the comfort of their home while making comments on plans and policy.
I just think that the one thing that Zoom doesn't lend itself to is the kind of interaction you get when you actually have people together talking about public amenities. And I just think Zoom, that just doesn't happen as much or as well. You don't get to feed off each other's reactions and ideas as well.
I would agree with you there. Absolutely.
Anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up. I know it was something we talked about last time.
Yeah. It's a matter of, you know, going full in person, doing hybrid. We're going to do something. I want to be as inclusive as possible, but at the same time, get the best reaction and get the best product. And you're right, in person does elicit more feedback, more dialogue. It's just more engaging, I think. So, thank you.
Yeah, we should discuss that and look at the timing of the next meeting and, you know, county guidance and that sort of stuff. We should definitely consider that. Yeah. Thanks. That had been in the back of my head too, as we consider when the next meeting is. Okay. Any other comments on the director's report? Okay. We are up to item M, items from staff.
I don't have anything. Lori, do you have anything for items from staff?
No, I do not.
Okay. Just making sure.
I'm letting the black cat out, so we are now safe from that. Okay. We're up to commission items and referrals to staff. I'm not sure if this fits here or not, but I would like to propose an agenda item that we agendize Julie Cole and her waterfront education. Have a presentation from her at, you know, perhaps potentially the next meeting, depending on how full the agenda is.
Seconded.
Okay.
Chair Carlson, if you would just do a vote,
Sure.
Some type of vote on that, please.
Okay.
Raise hands.
Sure. Let's do a visual raise hands vote. So all in favor, raise your hand at this point.
Well, we actually have a hand on the.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay. Well, let's do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, sounds unanimous. That was all I had for my commission items and referrals to staff. Anyone else out there? I see hands up. Vicki, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Lori for sending out the notice about my famous light at Harbor Drive.
Inquiry, yes.
Subway. We sat there very patiently the other day and were thrilled to go through it without hitting people.
Great.
So,
Great.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, that probably saved lives on King Harbor opening day. Jim, go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I raised my hand and forgot to lower it. Sorry.
Okay. Leslie, go ahead.
I just had one thing. I know there's rules about how the leaseholders who have parking lots charge and run their pay systems, but I'm just wondering if the city can look into how the leaseholder at Marina Way is doing that. I've heard various people, I have not parked there yet, but I've heard various people commenting that there's no posted signs that tell you how much it will cost. and that it appears that they're doing surge charging, which maybe that's allowed, I don't know. But I think when we talked about the parking in that area back in November, I think we had been told it was $2 an hour. And I guess some days it's $2, sometimes it's $6 an hour. And so at least the locals that use it a lot would be heavily impacted by not really bringing in, how do I want to say this? Preventing, the wrong people, I guess. It's disallowing some people who would want to park there if they're going to be charged $24 to spend a morning on the water. Maybe it's all within the rules, but if the city could just look into how that's being done, it's, I guess, causing some alarm and confusion for some folks that frequent that area.
Okay, yeah, surge charging is news to me. I'm not sure if that's happening or not, but we'll definitely look into it and report back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Okay. Any other referrals to staff?
Good meeting.
It was. Yeah. Okay. With that, I believe we are up to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Happy Easter.
Oh, thank you, Vicki.
Thanks.
Happy Easter.
everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Mhm.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay. Good night, everyone.